the stand-up paddle boards. And I think that probably what's going to happen is the stand-up paddleboard thing is going to evolve into a surfing deal where the stand-up paddleboard gets smaller and smaller so that people start off catching the waves already standing up and not paddling, prone the way we do now. So I think that's an interesting trend. I really couldn't tell you a whole lot about the surf shops. It appears that the surf shops are, some of them are getting larger. They're becoming more corporate. So you've got some shops that are, they're advertising on billboards along the interstate and have several locations. But I really don't know a whole lot about the surf shop. But, in the past, the surf shops set clothing trends. The clothing trends were then picked up by the major retailers, and then they would pass from beyond the surfing community into the general population. And so I don't know if that's still true or not, but I haven't been in surf shops enough. They appear to be larger and more well stocked. At least the shops around here, they have tremendous inventories of boards. So from my perspective, it looks like the shops are doing well because they do have good inventory, and they've got a lot of high. The value of the inventory looks a lot higher than in the past. Oh yeah, if you can get information directly from someone like, my experience with Sean recently, when he built my board for me, was very pleasurable because we could discuss it, and he being a surfer could take my input on what I was interested in, even though I'm not a current aggressive surfer. I surf just a few times a year. He was able to assimilate my needs and my communication. Say, okay, well, here's what I think you should do. Here are your options. So we definitely kicked the design around a little bit, and I thought it was very, very worthwhile. So that is the value that a local shaper can give to someone, because surfboards are so personal and surfing is so subjective. Someone in Asia is not going to be able to give you that kind of service, information, and feedback. And so that's the value of a local guy.
So it must have been unusual having been the shaper, doing on the receiving end of that, now being the surfer going to the shaper. That must have been a little bit different, maybe not?
No, not really. It just seemed like a normal thing, to discuss.
Shaper to shaper.
Right. Here's what I'd like you to do. I did some research on the design of the board, and went on the internet and looked at some board designs, and actually printed off some things and thought about the dimensions a little bit. And it was interesting because it's the other. I used to do the same thing for myself when I build my own surfboards, is to analyze what my needs were, and then I would build a board myself. So basically, I used the same process. It was just that Sean was the one that interpreted it. One thing that's very interesting, I think that a lot of people don't understand that the reason surfing got started in Pensacola at such an early age was the fact that we had the military base here, and the military base brought in enlisted sailors from California who had surfed in California, and that was one of the strong reasons that surfing actually got started in the early 60s here in Pensacola, because of the military personnel coming into town.
You think it probably had something to do with the quality of the surfers here? Because we had Beezer, we had Yancey. You were a good surfer. There were other good surfers from here.
Sure.
There's been a lot that have done well. Sterling, Little Yancey. Do you think that emulating those people in California, maybe, because we seem like we had more of an influence from there than the East Coast?
Yeah, I do. I think, and I believe that we had several people working at the surfboard factory that were actually sailors living on the Navy base that had come from California and were working here. And, I think Pensacola got an early start into surfing, and I think that definitely benefited the local people. And I'm sure Yancey's son learned from his dad, and that helped develop, and make surfing be more advanced. Well, actually, it's interesting. I transitioned from surfboard building into boat repair, and then I transitioned from boat repair into managing a marina here in Pensacola, Brown Marine Service. I was managing the shipyard, and we provided towing services to people. Like if you broke down, we had a little boat, we'd go and tow you in, and, help. And Congress in 1985, they changed they had a certain law where they prevented the Coast Guard from going rescuing everybody. If they ran out of gas or broke down, or the Coast Guard would still go help people if their life was in danger, but if it was just somebody that was, having a mechanical problem, they wouldn't go rescue you. You had to hire somebody to come save you. So that brought about several towing operations. Boat US Towing, Towboat US, and the company that I worked for, Brown Marine Service, was a Boat US Towing company. And they required that any of the captains that went out and towed their members in, you buy an insurance policy, if you broke down, you call up and you get a free tow. All the captains had to be licensed captains in order to provide this service. So I got my captain's license while I was working at the marina to provide this service that the company, I was already doing towing, someone, like if your boat broke down, you should call on the radio, or we didn't have cell phones back then, but we'd go rescue you, bring you back in and fix the boat or take you gas or something like that. So I got a captain's license in, I think it was about 1993. And then I went to work for Roy Hess here in Pensacola, and I became a captain on his Broward, and that was in about 95, 96. And I've been working as a yacht captain ever since, private yacht captain. So maintain the boat, take the boat where the owner wants to go, provide the activities they want to do. It sparked me to get my pants washed. No, I had a very interesting experience this year. Now, being a surfer, throughout my boating career, I did a lot of competitive offshore racing, for example, and in the 70s and 80s. And whenever we had big waves in the ocean, I would be I could steer really well because I knew how to surf. So I could feel the boat, how it would be lifted up by the wave and surf. So, I've steered some pretty big yachts very fast offshore, down waves, with spinnakers up and stuff. And at night, totally black, no horizon, 40 knots of wind, real scary type stuff. But I did have an interesting experience. I was in Mexico this year, and in one day I was at Chinchorro Reef and took the yacht through the coral out into the ocean. And the cut at Chinchorro Reef is maybe 2 or 3 feet wider than the boat that I'm captain of, so it's very narrow, very tricky. And then I went to a place on the Mexican coastline called Ixcalac, and it is a 50-foot wide cut in the coral reef there. It's a barrier reef into an inner lagoon. And when I arrived there, there was a 60-foot private yacht, looked brand new, sitting on top of the reef, high and dry. And it was it had gone onto the reef, and crashed, and it looked bad. And the channel into Ixcalac was closed now totally, about 5 or 6 footers. And there are some range markers for the entrance, so I lined up the range markers and started to proceed in. But as I was going in, a wave picked up the boat, the Cat, and when this boat starts surfing, it usually goes off course quite a bit. It doesn't just surf straight in. So it turned about 40 degrees to starboard, which, with the narrowness of the reef and the big other private yacht sitting on the reef right where we were going through, it was kind of scary. So when it started surfing, I was probably going about 15 knots through a narrow entrance, but I was actually going right towards the reef when the wave picked the boat up. So I had to, I did full reverse on one engine, hard over on the wheel, and the bow thruster, all just like that fast.
Surfed it in.
And maintained control of the boat. And I didn't think I was going to be able to. And then we went in there and dropped off the owner and went right back out through the cut 10 minutes later.
Diapers were required on that one, yeah.
And then going out, we actually broke some of the fiberglass on the boat because we pounded so hard going out through the cut. And that was Ishkalak. Then I went about 40 more miles and surfed in another entrance, San Pedro Harbor, which was pretty tricky too because the waves were on the quarter, and it wasn't just a straight in shot; it had to go in at an angle, which made it hard too. So,
wow.
And I surfed into the harbor in a place called Playa Aventuras in Mexico this year also. They had closed the entrance, but we went in anyway, and it's about 50 feet wide, and it has big rocks on either side just piled up. That was really a wonderful experience. It's very interesting. My wife and I lived in Canada. We actually bought a house up there. And we lived at the boatyard for 3 years. We went down the street, and we just moved up there for the duration. It was supposed to be just 2 years. It ended up being 3 years. And it was a very interesting experience.
Pretty country.
It's really beautiful. It looks like Maine. A lot of fir trees and maple trees and rocks.
Did you like their healthcare system?
Actually, I think it's terrible.
Okay, that's good.
I saw people die up there.
Did you really?
Yeah, they have.
So what we hear is true.
It's terrible. Anybody that thinks Canadian healthcare should go up there and just view it. I really don't miss all the fumes and the dust though.
Yeah.
Now that I'm older.
I bet. Has it had any effect on you at all?
Well, I have a little joke that I say. It's never affected me yet. I think that we were careful about wearing respirators and things like that, so I don't feel like I've had any lasting health. But
yeah,
it is there is one thing that's interesting though. I have developed a sensitivity to styrene.
Yeah, that happens with people out here.
And in building this boat up in Canada, we had this boat was built with a vinyl ester resin, and it was built with a vacuum bag, which is you can go in the room and there's no fumes. It's really clean. It's not an open mold method, so the fumes are low, and the vinyl ester resin doesn't have a lot of styrene anyway. But they brought some molds into the shop where they were building some little boats at for the Canadian Navy. They were making these little drone power boats, 16-footers, that they put motors in, and they were radio controlled, and they were actually blowing them up. So they would use the drones to attack a ship like a terrorist, and then they would practice on shooting them. Like here's a little speedboat that's going to come in and blow you up. Well, they started laminating these little speedboats in the same shop up in Canada. The shops are closed up because it's cold up there, and there was a tremendous amount of styrene that was given off with these open molds, and it really had an effect. So I've noticed that I do have a reaction to styrene.
Yeah, that's what I hear. And once you've done it, I hear it's that way forever.
I taste it on. So I don't like being exposed to styrene. I can tell.